It's often really useful to let your Python program be able to make a decision based on what the user types in. So there should be a link to this code in the description of the YouTube video. If we run it, it'll ask us a couple of questions and it should be able to make a decision based on what the user types in. So if I say, yes, I'm thirsty, it'll tell me to have a drink. Whereas if I say, no, I'm not thirsty, it's been able to make a decision based on what I've typed in. Similarly, it'll ask us to rate McDonald's out of 5. If I say I don't like it with 1, it can detect that, whereas if I'm really keen on it, it can say something different. So it's how do we make our code make a decision based on what the user types in. So we've got 3 different examples here of if statements. We use if and else and elif, which we're going to go through in this video. So let's have a look and see how if statements work. First of all, we need to talk about Boolean values. Boolean means either true or false, and in Python notice that true or false has a capital letter at the beginning. So we're saying hungry is true at the moment, and we're just making a variable and we're saying we're always hungry, which sounds about right for me. So on line 5 we're testing to see are we hungry, or are we not hungry actually, if hungry is equal to false. So here we've got 2 equal signs. 2 equal signs means we're testing to see if the thing on the left is exactly equal to the thing on the right. Well, the thing on the left is a variable called hungry, which we've just set to true. So true is not equal to false, they're different, they're opposites. So if hungry is false, well, that's never going to happen, which is why we don't see this on the screen when we start our program. If we changed our code to say, no, we're not hungry, hungry is false, then we do see that message. So this is how an if statement works. We have what's called a Boolean expression. We're testing to see, is this true? Is hungry equal to false? And if hungry is equal to false, then we do this. Otherwise, we don't do that. So an if statement will have a Boolean expression, which is here. Then it'll have a colon, and then the next line has to be indented. If we don't indent it, we'll get an error message because Python needs to know what code to run if this expression is true. So if we've got a simple enough decision, that's fine, we just have an if statement. So sometimes though we need to do if something is true, then we do one thing, otherwise we do something else, and that's what else is for. So here, if we say we're thirsty, it'll do one thing. If we say we're not thirsty, it'll do another thing, and that's what else is useful. So we're saying, is thirsty equal to yes? Well, thirsty is the answer to the question, and raw input in Python 2 always returns some text, a string, which is why we've got the quotation marks in here. It's the same with input in Python 3. So if we are thirsty, it will display this. And then to check if we're not thirsty, we just say else. Now else has to be lined up with if. If it's not perfectly lined up, we're going to get an error message because else needs to know what the original if statement was. So if and else have to be lined up. Then we've got one more example here. It's a little bit more complicated, so feel free to stop watching or listening at this point if you don't want to get confused. But here we're not dealing with a text answer, we're dealing with a numerical answer, a number. So we ask the question, how much do you like McDonald's out of 5? And if we want to compare it to another number, so is the number greater than or less than a certain number, we need to convert our answer into an integer. So int stands for integer, which is a whole number. So we take our raw input, we convert it to an integer, and we save it into a new variable, which I've called McDonald's rating. So now we can say if our rating is greater than 5, or if it's less than 0, and notice how you combine different Boolean expressions with either and or on here. So we're saying if we've typed in something too big, or we've typed in something too small, like 99, then it can detect that. So if we haven't typed in something too big or too small, elif means we can check and see if something else is true. So this is saying we haven't typed in something dodgy, so we've typed in something correct, but have we typed in a number that's bigger than 3? If we have, we can do this, but if we haven't, which means we'll have typed in 1 or 2 or 3 rather than 4 or 5, then we can do this. So if we'll test something, elif will test something else if the original if isn't true, and else will fall back and do something else at the end. Okay, so if you're asking questions to the user, start off by typing out your raw input. So if we want to find out what their favourite colour is, what is your favourite colour? And there's a couple of challenges for you to work through in the description of this video. That will ask the question. You then need to save that into a variable. So let's call it favourite colour. And if you want to make a decision based on that, you can say if favourite colour is equal to, remember the two equal signs for an if statement, let's say red, print I really like red too. And then we can have elif favourite colour is equal to blue, print, I don't know, I don't like blue. And then else, I don't know, you could say I quite like that colour but not as much as red. Okay, so now we're making a quick decision. Oh, what have we done? Bad input on line 7. Oh, it's because I've missed off a colon on the end. Every if or elif or else all have to be lined up with each other, and they all have to have a colon. A general rule in Python is if you've got a colon at the end of the line, the next line has to be indented. So let's try that. What's your favourite colour? Blue. I don't like blue. What if we type in pink? I quite like that colour, but not as much as red. If we wanted to say what the user typed in at this point, I quite like pink rather than that colour, we'd be able to do that here. So instead of that colour, we'd close the quotation marks and we'd add on what they typed in, which is called favourite colour, and then we'd finish the sentence. So let's have a look. What's your favourite colour? Pink. I quite like pink, but not as much as red. Well, we're missing a space here, so let's put a space in here. Try again. What's your favourite colour? Black. I quite like black, but not as much as red. Okay, so if and elif and else will let your program make a decision based on what the user types in. There's some challenges in the description. Work your way through them, and I hope this has been helpful.